Hey everyone, James Niggemeyer here. Thank you for tuning back into my YouTube channel. Boy, I don't know what the rest of the country's been like, but here in Texas, we've had a lot of rain. A lot of the lakes, ponds, streams, rivers are all cresting. Some are out of its banks. We've had a lot of rain, which is great because we need it. My home lake, Lake Fork, has been low for some time. They worked on the dam, but now it's been on the rise, and with this last bit of rain, I think it'll probably only be 3 feet low maybe, which is great, but it represents a challenge I think that a lot of people are going to be faced with as you're coming out of the winter and you head towards the spring, and that is the challenge of rising dirty or muddy water in some instances, and in a lot of cases cold rising muddy water. And so I want to go over a bait that I feel like may not be the answer for everyone, but is one that has bailed me out in those types of situations. Before I get right into it, if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So this bait is something that I feel like is great for late winter and then right through the pre-spawn, and even a lot of times I've caught fish during the spawn on it. And it's a bait that really kind of is near and dear to my heart because it's the bait that I really started bass fishing with. It's one that I can remember one particular fish where basically that's where I was hooked on bass fishing. And that bait is a spinnerbait. And a spinnerbait, there's so many bait companies that make spinnerbaits, and it's pretty much kind of one of the tried and true, one of the staples of our sport. I think they, as far as bait selection goes, in the early days you had jigs, spinnerbaits, crankbaits, and topwater baits or soft plastic. I guess that's 5 different bait categories, but this is one of the originals. I really feel like a spinnerbait. I don't know when they started making spinnerbaits, but as soon as they did, they started catching bass. And it's one that I really like, and it's something that I feel like works in a lot of different conditions. Super clear water, dirty water, but colder, stained, or muddy water, it's a great bait. And I think part of the reason why is because of the flash of the blades, and the skirt it's actually pushing water. It doesn't make a whole lot of noise, except for maybe the blades might clack against the arm or the little ball bearings or the ball bearing swivel. But the flash, the skirt, it's actually pushing through the water, and I feel like it really gets the fish's attention. And color selection is important as well. So I'm going to go into a lot of different things that I feel like make spinnerbait fishing productive when you have high, cold, muddy water or stained water at very least. One of the things that I want to do when I'm choosing a spinnerbait this time of year is I want a brighter one. I want a bait that's brighter. And so you see here I've got a chartreuse blue and white combination. That's got a lot of color to it. I feel like that's going to really get the fish's attention in that stained water. As far as different types of colors that work well in this type of environment, sometimes if the water's really dirty, you might even go with like an orange or orange and chartreuse, something that's got some really shock or punch to it. Some of the other ones would be something that's got some chartreuse to it, but it's got a darker hue. Copper blades can be really important. Probably the one that I go to most is a chartreuse and white. Chartreuse and white it's really hard to beat anytime, but a chartreuse and white spinnerbait is really just a great bait day in, day out, but really in that stained water. And how I've got this rigged is exactly the way that I would want to fish colder, muddy, or even stained water. I want a blade that is either a Colorado or an Indiana on the very end, and I want that blade the reason I want that blade in a Colorado or in Indiana is so it can thump and put out vibration. I think that's going to actually help fish find it. They're going to be able to feel that on their lateral line if the bait gets close to them. And then this is something that used to be a secret for years, but it really isn't anymore. All the bait companies seem to have a spinnerbait like this. But it's for good reason, because it works. This is what we would call, a lot of guys will term this the kicker blade. This is your main spinnerbait blade. This is the kicker blade in an orange or fluorescent red one. That combination here, again, it's about being able to make your spinnerbait visible to the bass. And then one of the things that I like to do is I like to have a trailer. Again, more movement, more vibration, and it also brings a visual appeal to the bait as it's swimming through the water. So if I was just going to fish, if I was just going to choose one spinnerbait to have on hand, I'd probably take a chartreuse and white. I know this one's kind of ratty. I just pulled it out of my spinnerbait bag, and I've had history with this bait and caught fish on it. Now size, I'm going to say probably day in, day out, a ½ ounce. And sometimes I'll go lighter, like a 3/8 if I'm in a zone or in a particular part of the lake where it's actually shallower, or maybe fishing for fish that are relating to maybe lay down logs or underneath docks. I might go with 3/8 to kind of keep it higher in the water column, especially if you have a bright day like this. Fish are going to get closer to targets, and you kind of want to think about it one of two ways. Either you want it to be higher in the water column if fish are suspended, or you want to slow roll it down on the bottom. In that case, you might go with a 5/8 or even a 3/4 ounce. But kind of be cognizant of where you think those fish are. And I feel like more times than not, when the water is stained, those fish are going to actually be shallower. They may not be in shallow water, but they're going to kind of elevate themselves to take advantage of the visual effect of having light. On a bright bluebird sky like this, we're post frontal here. It was raining all day yesterday, cold night last night, and we've got these bright sunny days like this. It's typically not a spinnerbait day. However, this is where I throw kind of usually think windy days, cloudy days, overcast days, that's a spinnerbait day, and that is true. But when you have muddy or stained water, that tips the scales in your favor. And what I mean by that is it enables you to present a bait like a spinnerbait, because it kind of camouflages that bait. It removes the sight factor. They can't tell that it's not real, and actually those fish will bite that spinnerbait in this stained and colder, muddy water. Again, it's post frontal, may not get a bite, but that's the bait that I would say if you're fishing in cold, muddy water, I would have a spinnerbait. Either one that's like this one, I believe, is a 3/8 with a number 4 Indiana and probably a number 2 or 3 kicker Colorado. And it's either that, or some places, red spinnerbaits really work well. In Texas, red spinnerbaits is a deal. It's not something that I have particularly done really well with, but I know it works. So brighter blades, orange and reddish colored spinnerbaits can be a deal in this later winter, moving into the pre-spawn. One more thing I want to tell you about the spinnerbait in this colder water. One of the reasons I like that Indiana blade or Colorado blade is because it has a larger axis of rotation, and that's going to slow this bait down. I want it to slow down so that I'm not fishing it too fast. I want that bait to kind of hover and stay as long as it can in the strike zone, and that will actually help you get more strikes. This grub tail is going to slow it down some as well. So a couple of factors that you wanted to take into consideration when you're spinnerbait fishing in colder water. We're going to try to fish around in this little area here and maybe get a bite or two. Cooler, muddy water, stained water, no problem with the spinnerbait. Nice chunker. But that's the video, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning into my YouTube channel.